Hi guys, it's Misty from the Book Rat, and it's time for Book Chat. This week we are talking about books that surprised us, so books that we weren't expecting to like but ended up loving. For me, I certainly go through my phases and think that anything outside of that genre I'm not going to like. Some of the ones that stand out for me are boy books. So when I was a kid, a lot of the assigned reading in school that sort of fell under the heading of boy books, I was always a little dubious about. But a lot of them ended up being some of my favorites from school. Things like Hatchet by Gary Paulson. Everything about this just sounded so like boy and outdoorsy, wilderness, survival, all this stuff that I really could have cared less about and still could kind of care less about. But I love this book. It's so good, and there are so many moments in it that just stand out to me. Just because it's so well written and such a really riveting story. Liked it enough actually that I read and own the entire series. Pretty much everything by SE Hinton. When I was in 8th grade we had to read The Outsiders, and again it sounded like a boy book. The cover was unappealing and it didn't sound like anything I wanted to read, and I thought it was written by a man. I read it in a day and kind of irritated my teacher because we were supposed to be reading it chapter by chapter to discuss it with the class, and so she made me go to the library and get another book by S.E. Hinton, I think as a punishment, but it backfired because then I read that one that night and worked my way through the entire catalog of S.E. Hinton in our school library, and my teacher was just like done with me at this point. I loved them, and then on top of all that I found out that S.E. Hinton was a chick and was 15 when she wrote The Outsiders. So, badass. Short stories I'm gonna go with as one of my options. I always used to say that I was not a fan of short stories, and then I just realized that it's because I wasn't reading the right ones. I wasn't reading good ones. I think a lot of the ones that they assign in schools, they assign because it shows one certain aspect of writing and not because it's necessarily a good short story. So it wasn't until I started reading Ray Bradbury and Roald Dahl's short stories for adults, Shirley Jackson's short stories, Lori Moore's short stories. There are actually a lot of really great stories out there, and I own quite a few anthologies now and actually really enjoy short stories, and never thought I would. And I have a lot of friends that say that they don't like short stories, and I just want to push certain ones on them and say, no, you don't like shitty short stories, and neither do I. Pretty much everything by Tamara Pierce. I had never really read fantasy when I first read The Song of the Lioness Quartet by Tamara Pierce, and don't even remember why I picked it up. I don't know if it was that a librarian recommended it or a friend had recommended it. I'm not really sure, and the cover was just like god-awful late 80s, early 90s schlock. It was just really bad, and I was convinced that I was not going to like it. And I fell in love, and they're just fantastic stories, and she's a great writer, and it just kind of opened me up to reading fantasy and something outside of my genre, and something that I always thought was going to be not for me. Anne of Green Gables by Ellen Montgomery. I was assigned this to read in one of the little reading circles that you do when you're in school when I was maybe 11, and I was dead set against this book. Just did not want to read it. It sounded so old-fashioned, and I thought it was going to be nerdy and boring, and just the language was going to be old and stuffy, and I was so against this book. Anne of Green Gables is counted among my favorite books now. I would rank it in the top 3. I adore Anne with an E, Shirley. I love everything about this book. I've read it well over 20 times. I can't even count how many times I've read this book. Read the whole series. It started me on a huge classics kick, so obviously the old language was not something I was opposed to. And I'm really, really glad for everything that teacher did, but especially for pushing that book on me. And there are a whole host of other books that I've read that I didn't expect to read, and that's why I'm so grateful for friends and librarians and teachers who push books on people, and bloggers and reviewers and YouTubers who are relentless about getting people to read things that are outside their genre or aren't as well known and don't get all the rave reviews. that's how you discover some of your favorite books and how you discover new authors and new genres and sort of broaden your horizons and find out some of the great stuff that's out there. So thank you to everyone who has ever pushed a book on me that I didn't think I was going to like. Whether I liked it or not, just the fact that you pushed it is a good thing. So I hope all of you will do the same and push some of your favorites and some of the books that surprised you on other people. If you want to participate in book chat, you can record your own video and link it up as a video response below, or you can link it on the linky at thebookrat.com. Same for if you do a blog post, and of course you're always welcome to just comment with your thoughts and your answers for the week's question. If you want to prepare for next week's book chat, we're going to be talking about book covers that we wish we could just redo. So whether it's just a little tweaking, a little change to the cover, or just a complete rehaul, we all have those covers that just irritate us for some reason, and I want to know what they are.